Well, hello, welcome back, my imaginary friends. This is going to be our last night together. The last chapter is here. We made it through the whole book. Aren't you feeling good? I ask sarcastically. I don't know, this story has made me feel worse. And this is supposed to be a kid's book. I got this from the library. The library in the kids section. And we have a small library, and this is in there. I do like the pictures. Maybe that's why. Maybe nobody has read it. It's sneaking through. I don't know. Maybe they read something different. I don't know. Maybe they don't even hear what we hear. Maybe they don't speak Parseltongue. They're not fluid in a foreign language. That's what I'm saying. In douchebag language. In douchish, we'll call it. Or if you have another suggestion on what language it is, you'd say Parseltongue if you got the reference, but we can come up with our own. Okay, so this one is kind of the back of the book. And it says the First Amendment to the preamble of the Founding Fathers. And so it's got a few little interesting things. One, what makes a founding father a founding father, you ask? The term founding fathers was first used by President Warren G. Harding in 1918. Since then, it has become one of the most popular historical terms in America. Most historians agree that in order to be a founding father, you have to have A, signed the Declaration of Independence, and or B, helped to frame the U.S. Constitution. There are certain founding fathers, however, who did not neither, but are nonetheless regarded as founding fathers by many historians because they helped shape the new nation. This book is a showcase of the most famous founding fathers, though it is by no means a complete or perfect list. Our understanding of history is always changing. Number 2, some things they argued about. The Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 56 of the Founding Fathers agreed on a formal written Declaration of Independence from Great Britain. This was not an easy decision. Not long before this date, many of the fathers had still held out hope that the colonies could work out their problems with Britain without declaring independence. By creating this document, these understandings, respected wealthy citizens of the British Crown were becoming outlaws. They could be arrested or hanged. This declaration would mean war, and many of the founding fathers had big doubts that America could win such a war. And they argued and argued and argued. But on August 2nd, 1776, they signed this declaration. The United States Constitution. The Constitution is a set of rules. These rules provide the framework for America's government. When it was first proposed in 1787, many of the fathers were totally opposed to it. They thought it would deprive Americans of the rights and freedoms. They thought it would put power in the hands of only the wealthy and educated, and that this was unfair. What they wanted instead was democracy, where the people governed themselves. They wanted the states to be able to make their own laws and not have to answer to a national constitution. They feared a big central government that would have too much power over the states. The pro-Constitution fathers argued that if America were to survive and grow as a country, it would need to be more unified. It would need one central government that controlled all the states, and it would need a constitution that applied to all Americans. The pro-Constitution fathers won and created the Constitution. But the anti-Constitution fathers forced them to add the Bill of Rights, which helped protect certain basic rights and freedoms of common people. Americans are still adding to the Constitution and arguing about it constantly. Like America itself, It is a work in progress, as if it's been maturing and morphing along with us, developing along with us. Religion. So, America, especially in New England, had been settled in large part by people who wanted the freedom to practice whatever religion they were pleased. They pleased. In Europe, you see, many governments tried to tell the people how to worship. This was a big issue for the founding fathers, who practiced a variety of Christian faiths. So, the Constitution they framed made it clear that America's government should not establish any specific religious faith as the official religion of America. And the Constitution made it clear that all Americans have the right to practice their own religious beliefs or not. However, even though this became the law of the land, the founding fathers disagreed on the topic. Many thought America should be officially a Christian nation, that children should be forced to learn about the Bible in school, that every session of Congress should appear with a Christian prayer. And America still disagreed on the topic to this day. A strong central government versus state rights. Some of the founding fathers thought that each state in America should get to mainly control itself and make its own laws. Other founding fathers thought that was a bad idea. They thought that one central government should control all the states. What they came up with was a compromise. Certain matters, such as who has the right to vote and laws regarding slavery, would be left up to the states to decide. But there would also be one big central government that controlled the whole country, and one constitution with rules and laws and freedoms that applied to all of the states. Even after this compromise, though, the fathers argued bitterly about states' rights versus central government. And more than 200 years later, Americans are still arguing about it. Go figure. Slavery. Back in the 1700s, people all over America owned slaves in the North and the South. And though some people spoke against slavery, those people were the minority. Slavery was popular, but it was also an emotional topic that caused a lot of arguing. Some of the founding fathers were opposed to slavery, well, in theory, but slaves were a crucial part of the American economy, and many of the founding fathers owned slaves, even many of those who claimed to be morally opposed to slavery. Certain Southern fathers, and especially the ones from North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia, were more pro-slavery than most of the other fathers. So in order to get these particular Southern founding fathers to agree to the new Constitution, the other founding fathers had to leave out the topic of slavery altogether and leave it up to the individual states to decide. And it wasn't until 1865 that the Constitution was finally amended to outlaw slavery in all the states. Unfortunately, a bloody civil war between the North and the South had to happen first. Democracy. Back in the 1700s, democracy meant a system of government by which the people govern themselves, where everyone can vote, where anyone can run for office, and where the majority rules. The America that the founding fathers founded was not a pure democracy. It was a constitutional republic, a government guided by a constitution, a nation where not just anyone could vote or run for office. Most of the founding fathers thought that America should be governed by educated, wealthy people, people smart enough to run the country. These founding fathers, including Hamilton, Madison, Jay, Morris, and Rush, were opposed to majority rule. These fathers were against the riffraff of America, the majority, being in control, which they thought of as, quote, mob rule. That would not be good for the minority of wealthy people. No, it wouldn't. However, there was also a vocal group of founding fathers who were pro-democracy, including Jefferson, Henry, and Paine. Though they didn't win the argument, of course they didn't win. That would be silly. Their pro-democracy views helped shape the country America would later become. For instance, In current day America, most adult citizens have the right to vote, regardless of color, gender, creed, or wealth. And voting is the most important expression of democracy. Foreign wars. The founding fathers were divided on whether or not it was a good idea to get involved in the wars of other countries. They could not agree on this topic, nor can current day Americans. Taxes. Taxes are monies that the people have to pay to the government to help pay for stuff like roads and armies and schools and stuff. What is the stuff? Is that is that the CDC stuff? What is that? The NASA stuff? What is the stuff? What's in that bag of stuff? I want to know. What other stuff does my tax money go to? HARP? Underground bunkers? Facelifts? Alexis? I don't know. What other stuffs? I can only guess. I can only brainstorm ideas. What are your ideas? What do you think's in the stuff bag? Taxes are monies that the people have to pay to the government to help pay for stuff, like roads and armies and schools and stuff. What stuff? Before the Revolution, the British government was charging Americans taxes without their consent. How dare they? And without giving them representatives in Parliament. This made the Americans mad. No taxation without representation, they cried. And this became the rally cry for the American Revolution. It wasn't that colonists didn't want to pay taxes. It was that they had no say over what the taxes they paid and had no representatives in the British Parliament. As British citizens, they thought this was unfair. In modern-day America, many Americans still complain that the taxes are unfair. But these complaints are different from the colonists' complaints. Modern-day Americans do have some say over which taxes they pay by having the right to elect their own representatives to Congress. The main exception to this, oddly enough, is in Washington, D.C., the national's capital. Washington has no representatives in Congress. Taxation without representation. But I think Washington, D.C., I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Washington, D.C. kind of like its own, it's like the Vatican? Like, doesn't it have like its own, it's separate, it's not a part of, it's a circle, it's a cookie cutter, a little donut there, a donut hole, an ass. Suck. Okay. The Boston Tea Party. And this is our last bit of information. On December 16th of 1773, a group of colonists boarded 3 ships containing tea that Britain was forcing the colonies to purchase. Very quietly and peacefully, these men dumped the tea in the Boston harbor. Later on, this became known as the Boston Tea Party. It was one of the events that pushed America on the path towards revolution. Though many founding fathers applaud this bold act, not all of the fathers approved of it. Some founding fathers took destruction of private property very seriously and were horrified at the action of the Tea Partiers. Most horrified of all was George Washington. That's the end of our story. It's just got some representations, where they got these. They're references. And then here's a few other additional preambles. A note about livestock-owned figures. Oh, here's some interesting things. Okay, maybe I'll explain the zebra. Listed for founding fathers. Surely that's a joke. Given the fluctuating nature of livestock, regularly dying, being born, or sold. It is difficult to list any one amount that is accurate to the entirety of each founding father's period of ownership. Therefore, the figures chosen pertain to 1 year and one inventory. However, these figures will give the reader an idea of how many hogs or sheep or parrots each founding father generally owned at any given point. Note about human slaves owned figures listed for each founding father. The figures here do not reflect the entire period of ownership, but just 1 year of one inventory. Again, these figures are only intended to give the reader an idea of how many slaves each founding father generally owned at any given point. Where exact information is not available, the figures listed are averages. A note about land-owned figures listed for each founding father. Many of the founding fathers were regularly buying and selling land parcels. The figures here reflect the amount of land owned at one point, for which an exact figure is now available. In some instances, the exact figure is difficult to determine, and so words such as more than or nearly have been used. Again, these figures will hopefully give the reader a general idea of the scope of the founding fathers' land holdings, which would have been greater or lesser than at different points. In any case, the figures will be useful in differentiating between fathers who loaned very little land and those who owned hundreds of thousands of acres. And a note about the wealth figures listed for each founding father. The figures here, where available, reflect the net worth of each founding father at its peak. Net worth includes not just money, but also the monetary value of all land holdings and property, including human property. The dollar amounts listed are estimations based on the founding fathers' net worth and adjusted for inflation to 2014 American dollar value. There were many ways of estimating wealth. The method used here involves measuring the individual's net worth against the entire worth of America. It's kind of complicated. And that's it. I'm almost sure, yes. That's the end of the founding fathers, those horse riding, fiddle playing, book reading, gun toting gentlemen who started America, by Jonah Winter and illustrated by Barry Blitt. I hope that gave you a giggle. Killed 20 minutes. Whatever flavor Kool-Aid popsicle you're sucking on tonight. Anyway, I thought it was quite interesting. It's really funny when you read it. You think, wow, these guys were assholes. I had no idea. And they created the what? The very thing that they're doing the what with the what today? What? Anyway, God bless America. God might save the king, but he blesses America. The child, the christened child, the golden child, the golden era, the boom, the heroes, no, the prophets, that's right. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Who was it that liked money? I can't remember. Oh yeah, almost all of them. Well, that does it. So, awkwardly, we say goodbye now. Good night, and happy Independence Day, July 4th.